camera on. How about that? It is 10 a.m. in the 1-2 true time zone, and I decided that I'm going to be teaching the first section of our very special 3-day heroic launch workshop. We are going to be teaching it live today, live and in person. So if you are watching this live, good on you for that, because that means you're going to get this information before anybody else. So good stuff. I see people are joining in, which is super duper great. Good to see you. So we have Anne and Carolina here. Good to see you guys. Glad you're excited. Excellent, excellent, excellent. Cool. So I'm just going to get into it today. So again, this is our 3-day heroic launch workshop. And really what we're going to be doing is I'm going to be giving you essentially a crash course, on how to have a six-figure launch, or at least a $50,000 plus launch with a relatively small list. This is a process that I've been working on for quite a while, and I have got it down to a science, if I do say so myself. I used to teach these $10,000 per head 7-figure launch intensives. So this is essentially, I did the first one of those exactly 2 years ago in October of 2017. And since then, I've really optimized everything there is when it comes to having these big launches. And I've really dialed it down to what are the core elements that you need to have your own 6-figure launch, again, with a relatively small list. So you're going to get the best of the best. Each of these trainings, or at least this one, will probably be about a half hour or so. So you get just what you need to keep going. And then we will take it from there. So let's get into it. So one thing to understand. So our topic today is the building blocks of a 6-figure payday. The building blocks of a 6-figure payday. And the truth of the matter is that if you want to create incredible momentum in your business, and if you want to really stand out in the marketplace, if you want to make a lot of money and you want to make a huge impact, in my opinion, and I think the science is unequivocal on this, or the data is unequivocal on this, in my opinion, you need to be doing launches on a regular basis. And there's a lot of misconceptions in the industry about what a launch actually is. A lot of people think a launch is this big thing that's a 3-part video series where you get all these affiliates, blah, 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 and you do that twice a year, and then you just chill out for the other 10 months out of the year. And a lot of people will smartly say that's not a very, very good business model. And I would agree with that. But really, as I talk about launches, what I really mean is, we use the word launch, but a launch really is a marketing, promotion, or campaign that happens in real time. So it's a campaign that happens in real time with a beginning, middle, and an end. And if you look at the most successful companies in the world, both in the mainstream, these bigger companies, as well as people and businesses in our space and kind of the coaching online marketing space, you're going to find that the smart ones are always launching. There are literally no exceptions to this. Zero exceptions. But based on my definition, they're always launching. So a couple of our more popular examples in the culture would be, if you look at Apple. Apple is famous for their launches. If you know, back with the original Mac, the original Mac, then the MacBook, then of course there was the iPod and the iPad and the iPhone, and they're known for having their launches. I think they're on like iPhone 11 right now, something like that. If it wasn't for launching Apple, which at a time was the most valuable company in the world, I think it's currently Microsoft, which also launches all sorts of new products all the time. They're always launching. If you look at the video game industry, which is actually bigger than the movie industry today, is the building blocks of a 6-figure payday. So what we're going to be going over really is my process for having a six-figure launch, or at least a $50,000 plus launch with a relatively small list. I used to teach this at my $10,000 seven-figure launch intensives. The first one of those I did 2 years ago. And since then, I've really been constantly refining the process. And I really, really do have it down to a science. And my contention is that if you want to really accelerate your impact and income, you should be doing launches on a regular basis as well. So what that means is that you want to be launching on a regular basis. And as I've said before, if you were here before we had our little fire alarm, a launch really is a promotion that happens in real time with a beginning, middle, and an end. And if you look at the most successful companies in the world, they are launching on a regular basis. Think about Apple. Think about the video game industry. Think about the movie industry. One of my favorite examples is if you look at Disney. Disney is always launching new stuff all the time, and they'll launch different parts of their various properties. Like, so for example, the next Star Wars movie is coming out in December. Before that's coming out, Disney Plus which owns Star Wars, is launching the channel Disney Plus, and as part of that channel, one of the first live action Star Wars television shows, it's called The Mandalorian, is going to be on. And I'm sure that once the movie comes out, there's going to be all sorts of peripheral things that are going to allow Disney to continue making money via the Star Wars universe. And then, of course, next year, we're going to see the next Marvel movie come out. I think the next one is Black Widow. And then there's the entire Phase 4. So it never ends. This is what I'm getting at. Disney is always launching things. They've been launching things since they started, and they're going to continue to launch things, because that is what good business is all about. And as I mentioned before, those are some bigger companies. But if you look at all, keyword being all, of like the influencers and A-listers in our little industry, almost all of them, or basically all of them, I would say all of them, if they're not doing big launches now, they at least got on the map via doing big launches. So for example, think about Marie Forleo. There's a good chance, I would say that there's probably, looking at the participants we have here, there's most likely a chance that at least one person, maybe you listening to this, are in this world as a result of signing up for B School from a Marie Forleo launch. If that was you, actually, I'd be really curious. Let me know in the chat. I would find that quite interesting. So there's Marie Forleo. Look at Amy Porterfield, my friend and client at times, Todd Herman. He really got on the map via his 90-day year launch. Selena Sue, one of my other super clients, her Impacting Millions launch typically is one of the biggest launches of the year every year. And having that launch is a huge part of what allowed her to really accelerate her impact and her income, and allow her to essentially become an A-lister in the industry. Then if you look at the people who are at the very top of the food chain, I mentioned Marie Forleo already, but on the more masculine side of things, just earlier this year, to my understanding, the biggest internet marketing launch in history happened, and it was a combination of Russell Brunson and Tony Robbins and Dean Graziosi. These are, Tony Robbins, I think, is by far the biggest name in the personal development world. If you want to kind of blend the personal development world with the marketing world, you could say that these two are definitely, Tony and Russell would be the two biggest names there are. So again, if it's good enough for them, if it's good enough, it should be good enough for you. It's good enough for Disney. If it's good enough for Tony Robbins, then I don't think there's any reason why you should not be launching on a regular basis. And the good thing about launching is that it gives you a lot of things, but the big things that it gives you are, it gives you of course, it gives you that infusion of cash, of revenue that you could use to further scale your business. There's a lot of good things that you're going to want to have when you have a six-figure payday. So of course, not only is it going to give you that cash flow that's going to help you provide a nice life for yourself and your family and pay your bills and maybe buy a couple of nice things, go to a few nice dinners. Maybe we've had clients that have been able to, do things like pay off their mortgage as a result of having big launches. So all those things are great, of course. And then of course you can take that cushion, that cash you have, and use it to reinvest in your business, reinvest not just in advertising, but in other team members, other mentors, other mastermind programs, and things like that. So it is this wonderful cycle. But also very importantly is that launching, if you do it right, it's going to give you a lot of visibility to the right people. It's essentially like putting yourself, like making yourself omnipresent in the eyes of either like your specific audience, if you're just focusing on your internal audience, or if you're doing a bigger launch with partners and things like that. This is really how you up level yourself and make and move up the chain, so to speak, and become your own version of an A-lister. So again, a lot of people don't or not that they don't, but I just want to reaffirm to you that the visibility that you get from a launch is huge, in addition to all the cash that you're going to make, which these are both things. This is what you want. You want visibility, impact, and you want to make money. Thus, launching is a great vehicle for that. As my dog wants attention. Here we go. Okay, cool. So moving along. Another reason why right now, I really do believe that launching it's more important than ever to be coming up with these real-time marketing campaigns. It's more important than ever, mainly because our attention spans are so short. There's science that like the actual attention spans that people have, like because basically things like email and social media and Facebook and all these things, how we're always constantly checking our phone, they're actually they're making our attention spans literally shorter and shorter all the time. Therefore, because people have such short attention spans, we need to, when they're checking their phone, we really need to capture their attention in a big way. And we also need to be kind of hitting them from multiple media. We need to be doing these big marketing pushes, these big launches in order to stay relevant. So it's kind of it's a lot of ways it's a negative trend. It's like this idea that people are having shorter attention spans. So it's more important that we actually launch and get in front of them in a big way. At the same time, one thing that's really cool, which is another very unique opportunity, which really is what I've talked about before, is it's essentially the opportunity to become a micro celebrity to a relatively small group of audience. And this is because these days, based on the fact, I talked about attention fragmentation and things like that, based on the fact that there are so many different platforms, there's so many different options, right? We think about Netflix and there's a million different channels, or just think how many different channels there are. Think about how many different social media platforms there are. Think about how many different Facebook groups there are. Think about all the different events you can go to. Because there are so many different options, people are getting more picky. And the fact that people are getting more picky, that actually can be a really, really good thing for you, because that means that if you know your audience good enough, and if you plant your flag in the right place, you can become the perfect choice for a specific audience, for a very, very tightly knit universe of people. And if you're able to get in front of them via a launch and become a larger than life character in their eyes, it's a great way for you to actually have a huge launch or generate lots of revenue. With the good thing here is that with a relatively small audience. I have one client, Phil. He actually did an over $50,000 launch with only 100 people on his email list. One of our clients, Karen Donaldson, we did a case study in this group just 2 weeks ago. She's on track to do her first six-figure launch, and she has about 3,000 people on her list. And I've seen other similar numbers. So you don't need a huge list to have a big launch, but what you really, really need is you just need to be intentional about who you're launching in front of, and you need to, of course, do it in the right way. One final note on this: if you're not planning on launching anything anytime soon, I would highly encourage you to maybe change your thinking on that, because if you are in the business of transformation, meaning if you're a business coach or a personal development coach, or if you're a relationship coach, essentially anything that you're doing which is helping people, if you're selling expertise and information, November and December are really the best time to launch coaching programs and promote coaching programs. Because really, as you're aware, you might be in the situation yourself, a lot of people are looking to, they're looking really for gearing up for 2020. So they're looking to join a program. They're looking for something that's going to give them that good momentum going into 2020 and helping them make 2020 their best year ever. So I would highly encourage you to, if you don't have something that you're planning on offering your people to help them have a great 2020, I would highly encourage you to really November, or really little tip here, early December, like the first half of December, that is money making time of year for coaches. So it's all good to take vacations towards the end of December, but that first half of the year, I would encourage you to be launching something on a grand scale. So hopefully that makes sense. Hopefully I've sold you on the importance of launching. So now what I want to talk about is really getting into the building blocks of our of a six-figure payday. And so there's the thing that's really cool, and there's different variations of this, is that any kind of launch you do, it's really based on essentially 4 main sequences. We essentially have these 4 building blocks of a six-figure payday, which are these 4 sequences, which I'll go over in a second. And then, of course, we have a couple exercises for you to do. So, excuse me. So the 4 sequences are the brainwashing sequence. That's kind of our pre-launch sequence. Then we have our pre-launch sequence. That's where we put out content for our people. Then we have our open cart sequence. That's when you're actually open for business and you're accepting orders. And then we have what we call the cash sequence, which I'll explain. After we get to it. So let's talk about each of these one by one. So the brainwashing sequence. So what that means really is that you want to, before your launch actually begins, the actual pre-launch or your choreographed launch begins, what I encourage you to do is do a sequence that gets your audience really pre-sold on both you and your methodology and what they need to believe in order for them to invest in your program. So I have an entire training on this that it's actually in our Heroic Profits Facebook group. I'm going to have to update it soon, which is my Excalibur method, and that's really how you can make yourself into this heroic character in the eyes of your audience. So there's basically at a high level, the brainwashing sequence, typically we want to ideally do it 4 to 6 weeks out before our launch starts, before our pre-launch starts, that is. And then there's essentially 3 things that we want to sell people on. We want to sell people on our character. That's our heroic character. That includes both our superpowers as well as like our quirks, the things that make us, AKA our persona, essentially. So that's the first thing. The other thing we want to sell people on is our values. That's what we stand for and what we stand against. This is really important. And the other thing we want to sell people on is essentially our methodology. That's what I call our magical sword. What is our shiny object that you could dangle in front of your people that's going to make them think, oh, I want that. That's amazing. And there's also science to making sure that this shiny object is proprietary to you. You're not just selling some general solution. You're selling a solution that they can only get from you, as I pet my dog. So That's the brainwashing sequence. Typically, it's 4 to 6 weeks out, and ideally, a good kind of framework here is you want to have basically one theme each week, leading up to your pre-launch, to get people really, really not just excited, but really indoctrinated on you and your way of thinking, etc., etc. So that's the brainwashing sequence. The next sequence is our pre-launch sequence, and that sequence is that's again when we put out content that is designed to get people or valuable content that is designed to get people farther along to whatever goal that you're going to help them achieve via your paid program. And so the key here is that there's 3 different kind of mind shifts we want to take people through in our pre-launch. We want to show them opportunity first, then we want to show them possibility, and then we want to show them certainty. Opportunity, oh, you're so needy. How about that? So first we want to show them opportunity. That means we want to show them that there's an opportunity for things to be different. There's an opportunity for things to be better. Like today, I talked to you about the opportunity that you have via launching. We talked about opportunities that you can have to accelerate your income, accelerate your impact, accelerate your visibility, how you could be like Disney and be a smart marketer by launching on a regular basis. I also talked about the opportunity that of the micro celebrity opportunity. How now, because of all this fragmentation, you're going to be able to really stand out to a small core group of people. And then I also talked about the opportunity of like towards the end of the year, if you're selling coaching, how like December really is a prime month to be launching. So we want to show, you want to show people the opportunity. Then we want to show them possibility. Possibility, that means, so first we show them this general opportunity, in this case, showing them how to launch. Then we want to show them possibility. That's what, not only do we want to show them that it's possible in a general sense for them to get, for them to change their life and do all these awesome things. How do I say this? We want to show that it's possible for them. We want them to believe that they can do it. That's how we show possibility. And typically the way we do this is that's when we give them actionable content that gets them closer to their chosen goal. Frank Kern many years ago came up with this idea of results in advance. Like if I'm trying to sell you a program and I can give you, and I can actually give you something for free that's going to actually give you results, like tangible results, then that's a great way for you to prove to yourself that I know what I'm talking about, and you're going to be very, very likely to invest in my program. So that's possibility. Then we want to show them certainty. Certainty, that's basically where we want to show people. We want to give them the complete framework, the complete roadmap for them to see, to show them how they can get from where they are now to where they want to go. This is where we kind of break down our entire process and let them really see it at a high level, or like the entire bird's eye view, let's say, and that'll basically make them say, so first for them to see that they really can do it, and there is a formula there, and all they have to do is follow the formula, and they will be very, 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 very successful. So that's the pre-launch: opportunity, possibility, certainty. And the thing here, and we'll actually chat about this on Wednesday, is that you don't need, there's many ways you can show people opportunity, possibility, and certainty. It could, of course, be in a 3-part video series. It could be in a challenge like I'm doing here. It could be in just one webinar. It could be a series of webinars. It could be just a series of blog posts. You have many, many, many options. And part of what I do with my clients, part of what like my secret sauce is that I can take a look at where they're at, what their assets are, what their audience is doing, and come up with like essentially a customized pre-launch plan based on what we're dealing with. This really is one thing where there isn't a one-size-fits-all type solution, if that makes sense. So that is the pre-launch. Then, of course, we have the open cart. the open cart period. I'm not going to get into this in too much detail because I think on later on I will keep you in suspense on this. Later on, I'm going to be breaking down my entire 7-figure open cart sequence. It's a very formulaic, systematic sequence that initially I came up with when I was working with, it was an evolution of years and years, but it really became popularized when I was running Ryan Levesque's launch, where he did a $3.3 million launch a couple years ago. And it was really, a big part of it was via this special open cart sequence that we came up with. And then since then, many people have kind of adapted this or try to kind of copy it, although of course there's a lot of nuances to it. And in addition to that, many of our clients who are having these $50,000 plus launches with relatively small lists, they're always using some version of my 7-figure open cart sequence because it works so well. So the point I'm getting at is if you can use the 7-figure open cart sequence either if you're looking to do a big multi-7-figure launch, but it works like a charm. Also, if you're looking to do just your first $50,000 or even your first $10,000 launch, the principles are always the same. So then we have so we talked about So we talked about the brainwashing sequence, the pre-launch sequence. I just mentioned the open cart sequence. Then the fourth sequence, and it's definitely first amongst equals, is what we call the cash sequence. Here is the most important thing. This is amongst the most important things I can tell you, is that whenever you're launching, whatever your launch is, you always want to think about your current launch, being a jumping off point, being the beginning point. It's never the end. It's not like, oh, I'm going to do all this work, I'm going to make $100,000, then I'm going to go chill out on a beach. Okay, you might want to chill out on the beach for a couple of days, but then it's time to get back to work, because what the smart marketers, the smart business people, what they'll do is they'll take remember, launches are the best way to get that infusion of cash, to get that amazing momentum, and to get that heightened visibility that you didn't have before. Thus, if you're a smart marketer, what you want to do is you want to take all that awesomeness and use it to keep moving your business forward. There's this idea that you almost want to have you always want to have, it's like this idea of the relay race. You want to have like one launch feed into the other launch, feed into the other launch, feed into the other launch, and then we have this wonderful cycle where we're constantly in what I call a launch rhythm, and you're able to keep accelerating your business via these real-time promotions, aka launches. Hopefully that makes sense to you. So let's talk then about, so your question is, does this mean I should be launching all the time? Well, to be honest, yes. I think that by my definition of launching, meaning doing these promotions in real time on a regular basis, I think you should essentially always have, or on a regular basis, be doing certain types of launches, certain types of promotions. Again, just look at the most successful companies, look at the most successful marketers. One of the examples I didn't give, but so if you look at Disney again, I talked about that example, Apple, they're always launching. But if you look at the really smart marketers, the ones who we know are testing a lot, who are doing the biggest numbers, who really know what they're doing, you'll see that they're launching and coming out with new promotions and offers all the time. So the best example I could think would be Agora, the largest information marketing company in the world. They're essentially $1 billion company. They're always launching stuff, like every week and they never run out of stuff. It's always new offers. Even if you look at companies like Digital Marketer, they're very smart. They use all sorts of automation and stuff, but if you get their email list, they're promoting stuff all the time. That's instructive to me. Is that instructive to you? That is instructive to me. Just think about any smart marketer you know. Almost all of them are going to be launches on a regular basis. And if you'll notice, one of my favorite things, of course, I'm not going to get on my soapbox too much right now, but many of these people selling you on this idea of evergreen funnels and evergreen marketing, they sell those types of things via launches. I'm just saying. So how are you able to actually launch all the time without driving yourself crazy? Well, fortunately, we have different templates for different promotions, which are relatively plug and play. And once you kind of know the system, it's not that hard to essentially, duplicate your launches. This is essentially this way of almost making your launches evergreen in a sense. Although they're happening in real time, you can still make them templated. So I want to talk to you about these different types of launches at a high level, so you can figure out kind of how you would create your marketing calendar. So what I have come up with is what I call the ABCD launch method, as my dog. Say hi to Trevor, everyone. Hey, there he is. So an A launch, those are your big launches that you want to do really 2 to 3 times a year. Those are your big launches that can be anywhere from, typically they're anywhere from 10 to like 60 days, or 10 to 45 days. Some of the longest launches I've seen are about 6 weeks, to be honest. But these are your big launches where you're really going all out. You're maybe doing a big challenge with some webinars, or you're doing a big 3-part video series, et cetera, et cetera. This is where you're really trying to get the attention of the marketplace. And like I said, really, it's hard to really do this effectively more than, oh my gosh, what is wrong? More than 3 times a year. 2 to 3 is kind of ideal. Doing it 4 is a little bit difficult. Doing one big launch every quarter, I wouldn't really recommend that. So those are your A launches. Then our B launches or our B promotions, those are ones that are they're typically about 7 to 10 days. That would be essentially like a webinar type promotion. Like if it's one webinar that you're going to promote hard, that would be kind of a B launch. Or like a shorter challenge, that could be kind of a B launch. And then a C launch, a C promotion, that could be anything, basically anything that's 5 days or less. So that could be anything from yes, I will answer that question. It can vary. I'll get to that. Thanks, Matt, for asking. So for your C launches, that could be anything from a 24-hour or 48-hour flash sale. That's just a small promotion, or it could be kind of like a 4 or 5 day email-based promotion, or just a 4 or 5 day promotion where you're promoting something heavily. And typically the thing with a C launch, a C promotion, typically a C promotion isn't going to have a lot of content. Typically a C promotion is kind of it's almost like just an open cart sequence, if that makes sense. You might do some emails that have like kind of some storytelling type story-based emails that have a lot of content in them. Or you might start out with like one piece of content, like one report or one video, and then just go into like 3 or 4 days of follow-up. So the rule of thumb here is, this is for getting actually, I'm giving so much stuff here. I'm getting a little bit ahead of ourselves. The way you get into your launch rhythm, what I recommend, and I would actually write this down if I were you, make a note of this, is we want to have, this is what I would recommend you do for you to get into a good launch rhythm. I would recommend when you plan your 2020 calendar, you want to do 2 to 3 A launches per year, 2 to 3 big A promotions. And then on the 2 to 3 of those per year. And then the off months, the months where you're not doing your big A promotions, you would want to do either one B promotion, like one 7-day webinar promotion, or the rule of thumb here is that 2 C promotions equals a B promotion. Hopefully that makes sense. So here's just would be an example of how I would map this out. Let's say next year I'm going to do a big A promotion. I'm going to do one in, I'm going to do one in March. I'm going to do one in June, and I'm going to do one in September. Those are my A launches. So March, June, and September. So that means in January and February, I have 2 choices. I can do B promotions in January and February, or I could do, for example, 2 C promotions in January and 1 B promotion in February, and then I have my A promotion in March. Does that make sense? Please let me know in the comments if that makes sense. If not, I will be happy to explain it once again. Okay, cool. Glad you understand. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Super important. Do this, you will make more money. One of our other rules of thumb is that the more offers you make, the more money you'll make. So if you want to make more money, have more offers, aka do more launches. And when you follow the templates and the system, it's not like you're going to have to be reinventing the wheel all the time. Okay, so Matt had a question about open cart periods. So this is kind of like asking how long is a piece of string. I'll just give you a few general frameworks. So with our seed promotions, if I'm doing like a seed promotion, again, that kind of is just an open cart sequence. So that's kind of easy. That's basically however long the promotion is. A good example of those would be kind of a 4 to 5 day promotion. There isn't really a huge open cart sequence there. If I'm doing like a B promotion, like a webinar type promotion, typically what I would do is it's typically about your open cart sequence would be maybe 4 to 5 days tops. Like, so for example, I might do things like, so here just to be a couple examples. A good thing that I found is doing webinars. It's different for different markets, but doing webinars on Wednesdays or Thursdays is good. So a couple options there is, let's say you're doing a webinar-based promotion and your webinar is going to be, let's just say it's going to be on a Wednesday. If that's the case, what I would probably do, I would start promoting on Monday. It's going to be on Wednesday. Then you have choices. A good kind of framework is that you could just close your cart on the following Sunday. So it's a relatively short open cart period, or I might push it a little bit more and close it like on a Tuesday. That would kind of make it like the following Tuesday at midnight. So you would like do your webinar, and then you would essentially be doing, that would be like 5 or 6 days of open cart, for example. But for your bigger A promotions, that's when it could really, really vary a lot. For like your bigger A promotions, typically I found that 5 to 7 days for a program, if you're selling a course, anything that's kind of $2,000 or less, I found like, 5 to 7, 8 days is a good kind of sweet spot for an open cart period. That's typically what I would recommend. However, here's actually an important thing. If you're selling something more high end, like something $3,000 or more, or like even better, like in the $5,000 range, with those, I would actually recommend having a longer open cart period. Really, I would recommend what I recommend my A player clients do is really like you want to do like a 2-week open cart period. And it can actually be longer, but I would say 2 weeks is good. And I have seen ones that are as long as 6 weeks, for example. Higher price, longer period, basically. That's a general rule of thumb. I would say yes, correct. Yeah, if you're selling something for $3,000, yeah, I would definitely do a 2-week open cart period. And a big part of that is because if you're selling something that requires phone calls, then you're going to need time to actually do the phone calls. So that's what I would recommend there. So yes, exactly. We are on the same page. Good stuff. All right. So I think that is what we chatted about. That is what I got for you today. So I do have one exercise for you, or a couple of our workshop homework assignments that I'll get to in a second. But before we do, let's do a quick recap, and then we'll do a couple of questions. All right. So again, we talked about the importance of why you want to be launches on a regular basis, why you want to be launching on a regular basis. Not only are the biggest companies in the world doing this, the most successful companies, but the most successful people in our industry are also doing this. Launches are going to give you that visibility and those cash infusions you need to really, really grow your business. And right now, launches are more important than ever these days because of the short attention span. People are so distracted that if you don't really hit them over the head with something amazing and timely that's happening in real time, they're not going to pay attention. And at the same time, because of all the fragmentation that's going on, all these different platforms, this hyper-niche society we're living in, you actually have a huge opportunity to have a huge launch with a relatively small audience by being the perfect person for your perfect market. And then we've talked about how if you're not planning on launching anything anytime soon, I would say do that. Let's change that because December and November really are amongst the best times of the year to be launching, especially to be launching coaching programs, business coaching, personal development coaching, and things like that. Then we talked about the 4 main launch sequences: the brainwashing sequence, the pre-launch sequence, the open cart sequence, then the cash sequence. Then I just explained to you how you can actually create this launch rhythm in your business where you are launching on a regular basis without driving yourself crazy by our ABC launch framework. So let's do a couple questions, and then we'll go into our exercise. What questions do you have today? Yes, there will be a recording. Yes. Questions. What type of ad spend would you need for a first launch? Well, that's a good question. So if you have, if it's your first launch, I would actually encourage you not really to focus too much on investing in Facebook advertising, unless, of course, you have a lot of, so the answer is it depends, but here's what I would say. If you're good at there's warm traffic and cold traffic. When it comes to cold traffic, I would not recommend you mess with cold traffic for a first launch, like generating cold leads on Facebook, unless you already are very, very savvy with Facebook ads. What I would encourage you to do is to spend money on retargeting. Like if you have an existing audience in place, it is worthwhile to retarget your existing audience, which isn't very expensive. I can't really, depending on how big your list is, but you could actually get some good traction with maybe a few $100s. If you're essentially uploading your existing list as a custom audience, that would not be very, very expensive. So yeah, that would basically be my answer to that. The other thing, just a little bit of thing to keep in mind, is that if it's not your first launch, so really, again, the reason why I'm saying don't mess with that is really if it's your first launch, you're really going to be getting your most juice, so to speak, from your existing audience, the people you're currently connected to, versus getting new people. Having said that, if you're looking to have a bigger launch, typically a rule of thumb is, and there's a little bit of nuance to it, but really what you want to do is you want to basically budget about 5 to 10% of what you're projecting to do in your launch, if that makes sense. So, if your goal is to have a 6-figure launch and you already have an audience in place and you want to make sure that you really smash it, then you would probably budget anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000 in Facebook ads. So, if that makes sense. Cool. Awesome. What other questions do you have? Let's just see who else has questions. All right, let's go. If you have a question, go ahead and pop it in here. So hopefully I have sold you on the idea of having a awesome launch. So here is your assignment for today. I want you to do a couple things. The most important thing possibly for you to have a successful launch is step 1, which is pick a date. And I would encourage you to plan on, if you don't already have this in place, if you're not already planning on promoting something in December or March, I would encourage you to do that. If for some reason you have this amazing reason to not promote anything in November or December, then I would definitely encourage you to have something going on, have some kind of promotion in January, towards the beginning of January, because that's, again, a lot of, new year, let's kick ass in 2020. So pick a launch date, and I'll paste these in here in a second. Okay, so number 1, pick a launch date. Number 2 is decide, I'll give more details on this, but decide if it's going to be an A, B, or C launch. So an A, B, or C launch for this one you have right now. Okay, so we have a couple questions here, and I will answer those. Then we want to, the third thing, step 3, I'll actually put these in here in a second. Third thing is, what is and you don't have to post this publicly if you don't want to, but list your good, better, best for what would make you really, really happy. What would be your good amount of revenue, your better amount of revenue, your best amount of revenue. inspired by our friend Todd Herman. So step one, pick your launch date, or it could just be the general date. We don't need to nail this right now. Decide if it's going to be an A, B, or C type promotion. Then list your good, better, best. And if you don't feel comfortable posting that publicly, I totally get that. Don't worry about it. And then step four is list all of the benefits that you'll have from having a successful launch. So if you had, so Matt, in your case, if you did 10K plus in your launch, what would be the benefits of that? So I'll paste these in here, and then we'll, we will wrap it up. All right, 1 second. Okay, there you go. So, oops. Oh, why do you do this? I am almost there. Give me a second. Oh my God, it's not letting me do this. Oh, there we go. All right, put it in the chat there, and I'll send a follow-up email with these details. Okay, we do have a couple questions. Let's get to it. What is a D launch? There actually is no D launch. That was a miscue there. Okay, Allison, should you just do one A launch and the other one? So once again, it's 2 to 3 bigger A launches a year, and in the off months that you're not doing your 2 to 3 big launches, you would do either a B launch on those months or 2 C launches on those months. Hopefully that makes sense. Phyllis, planning a high touch experience, 18K to 23K launching in December, event like that. What would you suggest for an open cart? Phyllis, that is easy. For that specific thing, for something like that, yes. If you're going to have a high touch experience, you'd want your launch, your open cart to be high touch as well. So in that case, I would definitely do at least a 2-week open cart, probably 2.5, 3 weeks, something like that. All right. Okay, cool. I think that is everything. Does everybody, I will, Ishel, check out the replay on this. It'll be posted soon. Okay, cool. What questions do you have before we wrap it up here? Questions. All right, any questions? Questions. Andrew, what price point of a product would you recommend for a first launch? If it's a first launch, I would highly encourage you to either basically launch something at the higher end of the market. So you can actually do a launch type promotion for a one-on-one package, a one-on-one offer. If you already have that, then you might want to consider launching a higher end group. That's really what I would recommend. A group that's in at least the $5,000 plus range. That's what I would recommend. All right, what other questions do you guys have? And yes, please post your homework in the Facebook group, our Heroic Profits Facebook group. I'll put the prompt up a little bit later, but yes, please do that. How would you recommend the launch of a 1K product? Well, a 10K product. This is what we're talking about. We're gonna get more into the actual details. We're gonna keep I mean, essentially, the framework is basically the same. It's about the 4 sequences with a 10K product. It's about a longer open cart period. You're going to want to get people on calls. But yeah, we'll get more into the details on that as the workshop progresses. What other questions do you guys have? Or do you have? What questions do you have? Is it wrong to start with a low revenue goal? I mean, you want to think about, no, I think that's fine. It's all about, it's all about your audience and, kind of what you think you can do. Although it's good to challenge, I wouldn't challenge you to challenge you to think about how you could accelerate that. Maybe have a bigger launch. You're saying a $30,000 euro launch, but hey, what would it take for you to do $50,000 or $100,000? If your life depended on it and you had to do a $100,000 launch, how would you do it? What resources would you tap into? All right. All right, it is the top of the hour, so we are going to jump off here. All right, thank you so much for being here. I trust this was valuable. And yes, tomorrow, I'm very excited. We're going to be going a little bit deeper. We're really going to be helping you figure out your 6-figure launch idea, like your main angle that's going to really help you really stand out in the marketplace. So that's what we're going to be talking about tomorrow. Hopefully you're excited about that. And yes, thank you so much for being here. And that is going to be our call today. Thanks again, everyone. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye. Thank you.